Going to tell us a story.
Yeah.
Thank you. You standing? All right. Big on stand.
That's all right. It's one of those days, nights.
No, it's Meg and then you. Meg PHILP. Thank you.
It's really interesting telling stories to adults compared with telling stories to children. And just lately I've been focusing more on trying to work in schools with children. And so I'm making a bit of a leap back into being with adults. And why do I tell stories? I've been doing it for quite some years. And this story that I'm going to tell tonight is one that I started telling 25 years ago. I'm really not that old. And you often wonder when you get a story out, why does that still appeal to me? What is it about the story that appeals to me? And it's a traditional story, a folk tale. And these stories were once upon a time told to children by the fire or to adults. Usually they were meant for adults, these ones, because this is a Grimm's story, which I've changed a little bit. It's a Grimm's folk tale, and in there you know the history of the brothers who were Grimm's, who collected those wonderful Martins and changed them a little bit, sanitized
They were
them.
attorneys though, but they just, for their interests on the side, they would go ask old people
That's right.
to tell them
Yeah.
stories.
And most of their informants were women who never got the credit. Sorry about that. So, one of the things that strikes me about this story is, I don't know if you noticed or paid any attention to the news, that the Queensland government is going to spend $3 million training reading aloud volunteers to go into schools. I'll put my name down, but we'll see what happens. And one of the things that's happening is that kids are not being very successful at reading, despite what's happening in primary schools, there's all sorts of reasons why that could be. And one of them, I think, is because they're not used to being told stories and they're not used to being read to with fluency. And one of the things about storytelling is that you really have to be fluent when you're telling. So, good luck. There once was a king who had 3 sons. The 2 eldest were smart, but the youngest, well, he was thought simple. They never called him, the 2 brothers, anything else but Dumbkin. Now, the old king, and he was old, was worried about who would reign after his death. And he thought it was time that he made some decision. The 2 older boys, well, I think they're twins. I've seen them in the classroom up the back playing up. They were always jiving one another. They liked to stir. No, King wasn't sure. And the young one, well, he never got much out of him. He was very quiet. But one day he summoned the 3 boys to him and said, "Now, I want to tell you this. Whoever brings back to me the most beautiful carpet in the world shall reign after I'm gone." 2 brothers said, "Hey, it's a bit of an adventure." Dumpkin looked a bit worried, and the father said, "Now, to be fair, I'm going to take you outside the palace. We'll stand out there. Come." So they went outside, the 3 of them, with the father and the father's attendants. And the father says, "I have 3 feathers here. Which way they flow and fly, that way you will go." And he pointed to the eldest one and said, "You first," took the feather, threw it in the air, it caught a gust, and it flew east. "Oh," said the eldest, "oh, I'm going east." And then the second, the king, threw it in the air, it was caught in the wind again, went west. The other one was pleased about that. They would meet up somewhere later on. But the youngest, he watched as his father threw the feather in the air, and it just sort of went forward a little bit and then dropped on the ground. You should have heard the brothers. They laughed. Oh, look at that. Look at old Duncan. That's not a tooth. Oh. And they got on the horses and galloped off. Duncan sat down quietly the way he was used to, crossed his legs. The father took his attendants with him and went back into the palace. And Duncan sat there. It was just in front of him, the feather. And when he looked, oh, in amongst the pebbles there seemed to be a line. A line that went long, and oh, there was a corner. And he got up. And he scraped the pebbles away. There was a ring, a trap door. He pulled that ring and heaved it up, and he looked down there. Nobody else was around. Looked down. He went in. What else would you do? Down the steps he went. When he got to the bottom of the steps, there was a door. And he knew what to do. Knocked on the door, and a voice called out, "Lady green and neat, prune feet, puppy dogs, prunes here, there and everywhere, open the door and see who's there." The door opened by itself. And there, in a room with a dim green light shining above them, was a whole heap of toads, little ones, all around this enormous toad sitting in the centre. "Well," said the large toad, "what is it you want?" And Duncan said, "I want the most beautiful carpet in the world." The toad said, "Bring that box over." She pointed to one of the little toads. "Bring that box over here." Well, the little toad must have been super strong, brought the box back, put it beside her, and she opened the lid. The toad said, "Well, what have we here?" She took out the most beautiful carpet. The colours shone in the light, the patterns, it was silk, it was woven, couldn't have been woven anywhere here on earth. Duncan gasped when he saw it, and the toad handed it over. He took it. He felt it and he said, "Thank you, thank you." And he turned and went up the stairs and back to the palace. Now, his two brothers, I have to tell you, they did meet up. They met up at the tavern. They said, "Oh, we don't need to worry about it. Duncan's never going to come up with anything. Well, look, there's a couple of shepherd lasses out the front there. I bet they've got a sheepskin or two." And that's what they did. They handed over a small comb, took the sheepskin from each of them, got on the horses and galloped back to the palace. The old king put his hands to the sheepskins and it was then that Duncan came in with the beautiful silken carpet. The old man had felt it. Whoa. "The youngest shall rule after me." The two brothers took on so. They jumped up and down and said, "That's not right, you can't have it, he's got no brains at all." Well, the old king said, "Enough, look, whoever brings back the most beautiful ring in the world shall rule after me." Oh, enough of those boys. And the same thing happened. He took them outside, threw the feathers, one went east, one went west. Duncan didn't worry when his just went. When everyone had gone, he went back down the stairs, having lifted up the trapdoor, and knocked on the door again. He was shown in. The big toad looked at him. "Well, what is it this time?" "Please, can I have the most beautiful ring in the world?" Oh, certainly." And she lifted the lid and gave him the most beautiful ring. The sparkle in it made the rainbow come out. It was a ring that couldn't possibly be made by any goldsmith on earth. "Thank you," he said. Up the stairs he went, put the trapdoor down. Now, the two brothers, they'd had a few drinks in the tavern by this time, and when they came out, rings, what can we do about rings? And there was an old cartwheel just at the side of the wall there. There was some rusty nails sticking out. "Hey," said one, "give it a kick." "Yeah, that'll do." They pulled out two of the rusty nails and took them to the blacksmith. The blacksmith curved them round. and they took these iron rings to their king. Then you'd wonder that they hadn't learned their lesson, wouldn't you? Did you know anybody like that who never learns when things don't go right? Gave it to the king looked at them, he said, dropped them on the floor. But when he saw Duncan's ring, oh, the sparkles in it. This is the most beautiful ring in the world, he said. My youngest son shall rule after me. And once again, the brothers wouldn't have it. He can't rule. No, we demand another trial. The old man couldn't think of anything else but, whoever brings the most beautiful woman in the world to me, he shall rule after me. And that is it. The same thing happened. Feathers flew east, west, and straight down. Now, the two young men knew exactly where they were going. They'd been talking to some women in the tavern earlier, so they went straight back there. But Duncan, he just went gingerly down the stairs. A beautiful woman he had to ask for. It had much to do with women. Went down the stairs, knocked on the door, the same thing happened. He was welcomed in. The toad was there, all the little toads. She said, "What? Oh, a beautiful woman. Well, that won't be so difficult. No. Just do as I say. Now." And she took a large orange carrot and put it down beside Duncan. And he noticed that tied to the carrot were 6 mice. Now, you know enough about stories to predict what's happening next. And Duncan looked at this and said, what am I going to do with this? He was quite outraged. He didn't know the story. So the toad said, "Look, just choose any one of these little toads. Anyone will do." He said, "Toad? Yes, just choose one. It doesn't matter which one." So he chose the nearest to her. And she said, "Put it on the carrot." So he put it on the carrot. And as soon as the little toad was on the carrot, it turned into a beautiful carriage with 6 horses, whatever colour you like. And these horses whinnied. And Duncan looked. And when he looked, there wasn't a little toad in there. There was a beautiful young woman. She smiled at him, and he took her hand and he kissed it and got in the carriage with her. And by magic, the carriage set off for the palace. Now, meanwhile, back in the tavern, the 2 boys had had a few drinks. "Come on," they said, and they picked up 2 lovely women. They had been celebrating a sale, and so they went back to the palace, and they were friendly enough to the king. They talked to him and were very hard-working young women. But when the king saw this young woman come in with Duncan, the king stepped up and had a closer look, Not sure that's really beautiful, but she's very polite. And she came forward and curtsied to the king and was polite. And they said, the 2 brothers got a bit worried. They said, "Oh, no. We think we need a final contest. We want whoever's woman jumps through that hoop that's hanging in the middle of the hole, they can be the king next." Well, they were thinking, that the women they had were young and lithe, and peasant women had been working in the fields, and when they were fit like that, they would jump through the hoop. And they did, quite ungracefully, and landed in a bit of a heap, but they were unhurt. But when it was the young woman's turn, Duncan's young woman's turn, she turned and she said, "No, I am not jumping through any hoops for the likes of you." And the king said, "Now that was beautiful. You, Duncan, shall rule after me." And when, after many years, the old man died, Duncan and his partner ruled well and wisely for the rest of their days. Thank you.
I was puzzled a bit